Do you know those moments when you look at the time and think it takes forever because you're stuck in a boring lesson? When time feels like half an eternity, and you just try to look interested, and then you're thinking about how can I look interested again, and then you think, never mind, just nod, smile, and wait until the lesson is over. This moment of looking at the time never happened to me in my last 3 years of high school in my German class. And there was only one reason for that. My teacher, Mrs. Schubert. I am from Germany, and I wouldn't be here today without Mrs. Schubert. She was more than a teacher. We all have a Mrs. Schubert in our lives, a person who believed in us when we couldn't. I nominate the Mrs. Schuberts of the world for a profile in courage because with their selfless dedication, they inspire us to become the people we are today. I argue that Mrs. Schubert's courage is best described by Parker Palmer. Teaching and learning are critical to our individual and collective survival and to the quality of our lives. This is the hardest but most important job of all. And often this process happens in small classrooms, also called everyday situations that go unnoticed and taken for granted. I would like to take you on a little journey through time from 2018 to 2020, representing the 3 qualities of Mrs. Schubert that made me the person I am today. Let's start with 2018 and with trust. The school bells are ringing. Mrs. Schubert comes in and she introduces our next topic, Faust by Goethe, a classic German drama that we had to read in class. Eyes rolled here and there, and our motivation level dropped below 0. Even though German is my native language, it didn't feel that way when I was reading the drama. But Mrs. Schubert trusted in us, and we learned to trust her. She was patient, no matter how many questions we asked, and trust me, there were many. In The Courage to Teach, Parker Palmer talks about the risk every teacher has to take. He says, a good teacher must stand where personal and public meet, dealing with the thundering flow of traffic at an intersection where weaving a web of connectedness feels more like crossing a freeway on foot. He describes how teachers make themselves vulnerable to indifference, judgment, and ridicule. But Mrs. Schubert's trust in her students let her take that risk every day. Not everyone has the courage to trust so strongly in the abilities of their students, and they would think, why put an effort into trust when students don't seem to feel it? But Mrs. Schubert trusted that every student would and could become more. 2019 comes with passion. You could feel Mrs. Schubert's love for words, rhetoric, and drama in every lesson. A study by the Martin Luther University in Halle-Wittenberg says, how much students enjoy and succeed in learning depends largely on the attitude of the teacher. Poetry analysis, for some perhaps, is the most boring topic in the world. But with Mrs. Schubert's humor and creative approach to teaching, poems became somehow cooler from week to week. She, like Parker Palmer, believes it's about helping students learn how to weave a world for themselves. And I started to love words, poems, and rhetoric, which is what I study today in communication, because Mrs. Schubert made me realize it's all about creativity and passion. Not everyone has the courage to be so passionate about inspiring their students to think. Why put an effort into passion when it may not be appreciated? But Mrs. Schubert needed no recognition to do what she did. We reached 2020 and support. 2020 was the year that changed us a lot. Recognizable even in school. Maybe you remember what you felt. Uncertainty, fear, panic, We felt it all. But Mrs. Schubert didn't let it show when she prepared us for our most important final exams. She built us up, even when we didn't believe in ourselves during that hard time. According to the World Health Organization, the COVID-19 pandemic triggers a 25% increase in anxiety and depression worldwide. My mental health was much challenged. I struggled with the pressure to perform and manage my social anxiety. In some lessons, I couldn't even say a word or present anything because of fear, and I felt sick just thinking about it. Since I had Mrs. Schubert in class, I changed. She encouraged me to speak in class and to stand up for my opinion. She saw her students beyond performance and grades. She was the support we needed to graduate. Not everyone has the courage to support their students in challenging times, and they would think, why put an effort into caring when I rather can care about myself? But Mrs. Schubert cared and turned her students' fears into confidence. In 2018, 2019, and 2020, I changed as a person thanks to Mrs. Schubert's trust, passion, and support. In these 3 years, she gave me more than just the craft for poetry and drama analysis. She made me the person I am today. She is an inspiration that many perceive as commonplace and taken for granted. As you think of your Mrs. Schubert in your life, who believes in you when you can't do it yourself, appreciate it. Your Mrs. Schubert could be in this room, even sitting next to you. Through them, we learn to believe in ourselves and to trust in our abilities. Through them, we discover which person we want to become. Through them, we can be confident and probably give a speech in front of 100 people. Mrs. Schubert may not have been honored for her courage in the news, but when we look back, it's often the closest people that have the biggest impact on us. For me, she's more than a teacher. She's my profile in courage. And if I looked at the time in her class, it was only to wish for more time. And yet, the impact of her lessons on my life will never end.